Good morning. It is morning here in Mississauga, but I'm sure where Jayapriya is, as always and as usual, it is an evening time for her. But here we are to welcome Satish Prabhu. I think he's a distinguished Toastmaster now, Satish Prabhu, who's been a coach to two clubs recently, and we are here to interview him on his experiences as a club coach. Satish, could you introduce yourself a little bit more?
First of all, good evening and good morning. It's a pleasure talking to you guys on a bright sunny day today in October, 15-degree weather. I am Satish Prabhu. I have been a Toastmaster for about 8 years. My journey started when a friend, close friend, invited me to join and experience Toastmasters. I didn't have the opportunity until a downturn in my life when I lost my job, which gave me a lot of time to reflect. And that was when I took the first step to go and experience Toastmasters, and I have never looked back since then. I was one of the most timid person to face any crowd. I would be the last person to put up my hand or would want to volunteer to speak. But that has changed over the number of years that I have been a Toastmaster. The experience has been to put it in words, to describe it as something as a roller coaster ride. So if you have been on a roller coaster, you are sure what I'm talking about. There are ups and there are downs. So it's very similar journey for me, but overall, at the end, when you get off the ride, you know you enjoyed it. And that's exactly what I want to say.
You were a coach for two clubs. What were those two clubs you were a coach for?
I was a coach for Soar to Excellence and Speaking for Success. Two different clubs, two different dynamics involved in the club. One which focused on being a family club. The other was a community club which used to meet in a church. So my assumption is that they were all church members or community members. So very different dynamics.
Tell me a little bit about your experiences in turning the clubs around. The family-oriented club would be Speaking for Success, I believe.
Speaking for Success had a very unique challenge. They went from, I think, 15 plus members to about 7 or 8 members when I joined them. And their challenges were something related to COVID that mostly it was a universal phenomenon that most clubs have experienced. Going online, they lost a majority of their club members and they had no answers as to how to grow. Me as a coach probably have an answer when I joined them as a coach, but coming as an outsider and the experience that I had gained was enough for me to give some or throw some perspectives back to the club and give them, I would say, something to steer around and adjust their sales so they would be able to attract more members and thereby grow. So what were the things I saw when I first joined them? I saw the focus was mostly on having external speakers come and take away most of the club time. There is a good and a bad side to it. The good side, where these were all professional speakers, were very good to listen to. But the downside was the club members themselves did not have time to grow using the club time. So this was one thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the club executives. And I did that with a lot of help. I had a lot of help. There was a co-coach, Mr. Bhushan Rele, so my speak. So both of us worked together as a team and recommended small adjustments and listen to them as well. So when you go as a coach, you cannot impose things on a club. And I learned that in my meeting, the very first meeting that I had with them, where they outright rejected some of the things that I asked them to do. And then I realized that you cannot come and demand or put something across which is not seen or accepted very easily. So the first thing you have to do as a coach is find acceptance in the club. This is the biggest challenge for any outsider. When you go as a guest, you are a guest, they don't know about you, they don't know about your experience. So it becomes a challenge when you have some members who would be called the stalwarts or the pillars of a club. And they are also very experienced Toastmasters. So when you deal with some of these people, it's a big challenge because you are always being judged in how you come as a coach and how you are going to give them any guidance or suggestions. So those things you have to, there is a thin line that you cannot cross. And being a new coach, if I go to the next club, I'll probably have all these learnings that will help me. But as a new coach, these are some of the mistakes many Toastmasters, I believe, perform. So you have to be very careful how you come across, become a friend, become somebody who's listening to them more than telling them what to do. I think that is the most important part of being a Toastmaster and a coach as well.
Absolutely agree with you, Satish, on we need to value the presence of the existing members and we need to recognize them for the membership fee they are paying. We need to give them roles and we need to help and support for achieving their education goals. You rightly identified the challenge of the club and you have motivated towards the right path. Now, I would like to understand, how did you promote the PR campaigns, promoting the club activities towards the membership growth? What are all the activities you handled for this club?
So one of the first things we did was ask the executives, make sure they updated any of their online presence. One of the biggest challenges I find, clubs forget that they have an online presence somewhere. The team changes year after year. The new team takes over, but I feel the biggest thing lacking in many clubs, I would say, at least, I would hazard a guess, 75 to 80% of the clubs do not update their online profiles. So you have an online profile, there are different websites that you use, they're all outdated. You may have changed your meeting time. That is not reflected in the online portal where you advertise your club. So if you do have any guests who want to come and meet, they have the wrong information or they have the wrong telephone number of the person to contact. So guess what happens? The guest, if any, gets attracted and wants to come to your club based on the address or the date, they then find out they don't meet at the same time or the same day. And the number they have is for a person or the Toastmaster is no longer in the club. I have received phone calls for an old club that I don't belong to. It sounds very funny, but this is a big problem when you really think about it. If I'm getting calls for a club I don't belong to, it's a poor reflection on the club itself. It's not I would go out of my way to help them. I never tell them that I'm not a member, but I give them the other information that because I'm still in touch with the old club, I would then say, by the way, here is a person who can help you more, rather than telling them I don't belong to the club. But this is a big challenge with many clubs. So that is one thing. Second thing is, I think the biggest challenge we have is we don't use voice, your own social network. I, as a Toastmaster, come to a club regularly, yes. I have a social network where I don't share that I am spending so much time with Toastmasters Club. Nobody knows except you and your family. Even your family sometimes doesn't know that you are part of a Toastmasters Club. So I think this is one thing that you can do at the minimum. This is at the minimum level. And I don't believe it's a responsibility only with the PR team. It's a responsibility that is shared by each and every member. Each and every member, when they come in, they need to know how to promote the club outside in their social circle, which is taken for granted. You become a member and you just take it for granted. It doesn't go outside even your own home. So I think that is something that we can do to promote growth. We had an open house.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I did have somebody who's really, really popular. So for this club, we had Roger Caesar. I invited him to the open house and we had an open house. So that by itself attracts a lot of people. Then I use my own network. Because I have been a Toastmaster so long, there's a lot of people that I know in the Toastmasters world, and I spread the word around and said, hey, Roger Caesar is speaking in this club on this day. You want to come and at least listen to him, or send somebody who wants to listen to him. So that also works.
Absolutely great ideas you're having, Satish.
Yeah.
And Brahm would like to know about your views on the thoughts shared by Satish.
Yes, what I was going to say is that 80% of the people who come to Toastmasters, this is from a survey done by Toastmasters, I believe, in Toastmasters International. It's a well-known fact that 80% of the people who join Toastmasters come through word of mouth. And word of mouth is Toastmasters telling other people to come and join. And that is how Toastmasters clubs grow. You know, we struggle a lot in promoting and doing all sorts of tricks and wondering what we do, but we don't ask the members, who do you know in your life? And I think Jayapriya has a better view on that. So I'll leave it to Jayapriya for a bit more insight in there.
With respect to promotions, highlighting all the medias through which we can promote a club event with respect to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Meetup, Google Meet, in all platforms we need to promote. And also I liked one idea which Satish was discussing a few minutes before we started this interview, Brahm, that is one of his vice president membership recognized him when he joined Toastmasters and the anniversary was celebrated. So these kind of small details, when the ExCom member is remembering and they are recognizing, that is where we build the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a Toastmaster, hey, there is someone to know when I joined and they are ready to celebrate the anniversary. So that is one takeaway which I really liked and I wanted to share with the viewers as well.
Wonderful. Now, Satish, tell us a little bit about Soar to Excellence, your experience there.
Yeah, so Soar to Excellence, I found a lot more acceptance there. Again, I had help. There was a co-coach there as well by the name Mr. Madhukar Shahi, excellent gentleman, and both of us shared the responsibility. I was hesitant based on my experience with Speaking for Success, because that was the first club I had approached to become a coach. Realizing that they were not very open to accepting me. At the same time, I had also approached Soar to Excellence. I did not open the subject that I want to be their coach. I did mention that in my first meeting, but I was there for a few months until Madhukar Shahi showed up, and he went ahead and I referred him to be the coach before I put my name forward. That was because I was so shy, once bitten, twice shy. I did not like to broach the subject with the executive saying, okay, they know that I'm here to be their coach and I'm visiting them every week as a guest and they like me, but I wanted them to say, by the way, you can be our coach. Little did I realize that I was supposed to be the one to actually take the second step again, saying, are you guys ready? And now can we sign this paperwork? So I'm officially your coach. So that was the thing that stopped me from being a coach. I could have been the coach maybe from the second or third meeting. But because of the first experience with another club, I said, maybe they don't like me. I want to I was trying to build that rapport and make sure that I was being accepted and seen as one of them, and then make, that second step saying, okay, I would now like to be a coach. But when Madhukar Shahi showed up, he was there for one meeting, and the second meeting he was there and he said, oh, by the way, I'm the coach. And like, you referred to me, you referred me to them and I'm the coach. And I said, hold on, and I'm there for a few months and I haven't had the guts to tell them, even though I told them in the first meeting. So I asked them and I said, well, we already have one coach. I don't know if you want a second coach. And I said, it's up to you. You hardly know this person. I've been here for, almost 2 months. You guys make a decision, and 2 coaches are better than 1. They are sure. I think that's fine. And then they agreed to that idea. And then basically we went ahead. So my experience with them, first thing I noticed with them is their meeting format. They had not changed anything about their meeting from the time they had physical meetings in the church to the time they went online. That was one challenge they faced. So I slowly made sure that they made some changes. One of the biggest changes I asked them to do is cut short the meeting time from 2 hours to an hour and a half. We always had a struggle at the end of the meeting of having too much time left over to finish the meeting. They did not have enough speakers. They did not have enough topics to cover. And I said, that's a waste of everybody's time to make people come and book their time for 2 hours. And then you're twiddling your thumbs at the end of the meeting, trying to fill up that extra time. So we cut it short.
Amazing. Yeah.
Made it more efficient. Second thing we did is switched their table topics with they always started with the table topic. Found that very, very unproductive for the meeting. They would start and then they go with the table topics. They don't know how many speakers, whether they have 1 speaker, 2 speakers, 3 speakers. They had their table topic. The table topics did not have a set time, and it would go all the way. They would go cover the whole club members, even if there are guests. So if there are 10 people, they would go through the whole list of 10 people, and then they are left with very little time to cover their speeches and their general evaluation. So we switched that around, right? I told them, put a limit on the table topics as well. When there are 2 speakers or 3 speakers, based on the number of speakers, adjust your table topics time. So it's dynamic. Table topics doesn't need to be a set time. It can be adjusted the way you want.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we made those changes, and pretty soon that became very, very efficient. The meetings were run more efficiently.
So what I see here is, Brahm, from the experience of Satish, as we always recommend, whenever a person is approaching us to get appointed as a coach, we recommend them, please visit the club, understand the challenges clearly, build the rapport with the members. And when you are sending us the club coach appointment, it must be known to the club members, because only then the club will also support, and it's a mutual learning experience. You have been visiting the club consistently to become a coach and break the ice with the members, in dwelling with them absolutely in a better way, so that you will be able to assist them on conducting quality club meetings, be it like general evaluation, table topics, how it can be conducted in a given shorter time span, so that the members' time is valued a lot.
So now, Satish, last closing few questions. Sometimes, club coaches go to a club, they coach the club, and then they leave, and the club goes back to numbers below 12 and need the coach again. Why would that happen?
Very interesting question, Bram. I wish I knew all the answers, but I believe, based on my experience, coaches are there with an objective. They have a goal, and there is a drive, there is a purpose. When the coach leaves the club, I believe that purpose is lost on the executives or the team that takes over. So there is also a change of guard.
Yes.
When the coaches leave, usually they leave around the same time as the guards change in the club. So you have that challenge.
Yes.
So the new members who take over maybe don't have that same experience because they did not have to go through the same challenges and don't have the same purpose and the drive from the learning that the other executives had when they were leading the club. So that is one. And they also get comfortable. That is another thing. Many clubs are very comfortable running with 4, 5, 6 people. There is that mindset. We don't need help. I have been to many clubs, including the first club I spoke about. We don't need a coach. We can survive on our own. We know what we are doing, and we don't need an outsider to tell us how to run our club. It's a very typical, I mean, even me, I mean, if anyone personally, I mean, this is like somebody intruding on your territory. So that is that mindset. We are very comfortable with the number of people we have, and we'll run it as is. We don't want to follow what Toastmasters guidelines tell us. That is not for us. So that is that mindset also in many clubs, including the clubs I coach. So they have that mindset. We don't need anybody from outside telling us how to run.
Right.
We don't want to follow the DCP. It doesn't, we don't follow that. We don't follow or we don't fall into that category. We are not DCP clubs. We don't want to be DCP club. So they basically reject the Toastmasters DCP program. And they're happy to run as they are. That is one reason I believe also keeps clubs from staying distinguished or getting that membership, because there is no purpose. They just want to meet. It's like more like a social gathering. You have 4 members, 4 friends who meet together for coffee, and basically that's what it is. It becomes like a coffee club for the 8 members or 7 members.
A social club, yes.
And then they just go through the meeting and they finish it, right? So in a way, it works for them. They are comfortable. But at the same time, when you are part of a Toastmasters program, Toastmasters, area directors, and others, externals, they look at your numbers and they say, well, this club needs a coach. And there are leaders who are looking to improve a club, and they are going there, trying to bring them up. So that's what happens.
So Brahm, what I feel is that we need to have some much more training sessions for the members and executive members in a way that their mindset is getting changed towards keeping a vision for the club. So if we are able to achieve that, I'm sure automatically we will be able to increase the membership strength. And so to summarize today with a meeting with Satish Prabhu on his coaching experience, first visiting the club consistently, understanding their challenges and assisting them on timely basis what they need, and also helping for the club promotional activities, and finally changing the mindset of the ExCom members so that even after the club coach is leaving, the club is getting a consistent support from all the members, and together they build the membership growth and as well as they achieve the education goals. Over to you, Brahm.
To summarize, the last point, Jayapriya, is very, very important what you said, and what Satish has been saying is continuity from one executive team to the next. That continuity, if that's not maintained, unfortunately, then whatever the club coach does, it doesn't really matter. If there's no continuity, so there's no help from one executive team to the other, handing over. There are some clubs that actually the all executive doesn't disappear. They become coaches to the new executive coming in, and they remain as coaches to the new executive throughout the year, and they're available totally to make sure that the direction has been set and that direction is followed. Those are the most successful clubs, I find. And then, of course, those clubs that have no continuity have difficulties because they're reinventing the wheel every year, and lots of loss of energy.
Yes.
So that's one of the big reasons I think that we need to address as well with members and see how can we have that continuity. What do you think, Satish, as a closing?
So based on the experience, one thing I have learned as a coach is there was a specific objective as a coach in my leadership path. There was a selfish intent when I went to coach. But that dissolved as soon as I went into the clubs, and I realized that it's not just the club's growth, it's my own growth as well.
Mhm.
And my objective is not complete in the deadline, which is June or June 30th, or whatever. The club has become distinguished. Both the clubs have become distinguished. It's a great thing. It's a great feeling that they all succeeded. But at the same time, when you see a few months down the road, the membership renewals come in, and now they're back to where they were, that's another challenge. So I have decided to continue working with them, maybe not as consistently as when I had an objective, but I'm still there to support. And I think many coaches need to make sure that they are still plugged into the clubs they coach to distinguished status. I am doing that for both the clubs. I have seen
Mhm.
Bhushan Rele is still in the club. He's probably more consistent than I am. It's just because of a conflict of time for me. But I do visit, and I think that that the relationship should not end when they become distinguished. You should continue to coach them and help the club as much as you can.
True. Actually, I met you at Soar to Excellence in the current year. It was past June, I think, when I came to speak there a couple of months back.
Yeah.
So exactly. So thank you very much, Satish. Thank you, Jayapriya. This has been
Thank
great.
you.
We will be conducting more interviews of other coaches and their experiences. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Have a great morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.